Bernie supporter because he's antithetical to all that.
Bernie, I felt because he was authentic. What won me?
Okay,
he was.
I got it. I got to write that down.
Not contradicting himself.
Okay.
And I didn't disagree with everything Trump did either. I honestly didn't. I didn't take personal what he said. It's just I was confused whether to take him serious or not. That's about it, honestly.
Okay, Bernie was authentic and consistent. I've never heard that way before. That matters to people.
It does. It really does.
Crooked Hillary was anything but. Oh God, she's terrible. I'm not surprised you didn't vote for her. You know, Miguel absolutely loathed her, still does, and I don't blame him. And anybody who's an acolyte for that, I don't. Miguel actually voted for David Hadley, the Republican, because he was honest. Murtsuchi was such a liar. He kept hitting the Trump card on Hadley, even though he had announced that he would not support him. It was that bad. So I hate. This is another thing that's starting to emerge for me. I've gone to these communities, these heavily blue communities, to start actually doing things like this, to talk to them. Nobody does. Our Republican Central Committee is wasteful, lazy, and even they've attacked me the same way that the DNC attacked Bernie. You probably read that story. You saw the poster, you know, Arthur Schomper, too extreme for the Republican Party, just enough for Jack Guerrero. That was the highest honor. I meant every word of it. And where did they get that from? Because my charter was revoked. Our charter was revoked because I'm a Trump supporter and I actually believe in doing stuff. Our Central Committee doesn't do anything. It's a corrupt situation, but the principles I still abide by. We just got to change that.
And I'm not. I mean, there's a lot of other things.
I'll be honest with you. I hope that you would consider following Jack's example and become a Republican. I can get you in touch with a group called Grow Elect, and they will help you. You know, that's your views are resonant with them. The Democratic Party in the state does not support school choice. They don't. They are in bed with the unions dominate. The Democratic Party is the teachers' unions. Is the Democratic Party. There's no break. That's the first thing. The second thing, you understand markets and business models. Democrats just want to tax everybody to death and beef up. You want to talk about who's the party of the 1%? It's the Democratic Party in the state.
I understand that because I'm a business owner. You know, so
what business do you have?
I sell organic fertilizer, and we also do drought-resistant lawns.
Oh, no.
When we had the drought, we take off your lawn and we put the rocks on. We put the drought-resistant landscaping.
Organic landscaping. Are you in Cudahy?
Yeah, we're in Cudahy, but we have our location in Carson. That's actually right here. It's called NB Nursery.
Okay. NB Nursery.
That's where I get most of my my resources online.
Well, great. That's excellent. Here's the thing. To my knowledge, Bernie never owned a business. He was either on welfare or a politician. I'm looking into it. He was at a kibbutz in Israel, which is a communal organization, and they kicked him out. He didn't work. What the hell was that?
This was when he was younger?
Yeah. You work. You actually understand that, you know, businessmen work very hard. If I don't like big corporations because of if there's government collusion. I didn't support TARP. I hated Bush for that. That's where Bernie people and I have corporate welfare is wrong. Robert Reich supports his corporate welfare. Absolutely. You and I shouldn't be bailing out General Electric. They should close up if they can't balance their books. I'm pretty sure you agree with that.
Yeah.
It's totally unfair. So, but everybody who's in the 1% is not a government crony.
Yeah.
There are great corporations that have done great things, and some of them are trying to use politics to keep their corner of the market strong, to stop competition. Milton Friedman talks a lot about that. If there's monopolies that are crushing, it's because of government. And that's where the departure is huge, because to me, Bernie voters see government as an agency to create more equity. It doesn't. That's the problem. It doesn't. A free market, competition, government steps in to enforce contracts, to prosecute crimes, and to ensure a stable money supply. It requires a government policy to do that. Otherwise, people would counterfeit money left and right, and the money supply, and it would be bad. So that's why.
All right.
Wow. So
yeah, I said what I had to say. I told you my point of views. It was good talking to you.
Yes.
Just a better approach than screaming and shouting.
Yeah. And Chris foments the shit when he says white supremacist. Notice how it's a distraction. It's a distraction. That's an evil thing he said. And then the meeting got shut down. People in the city booed him too. It wasn't just us.
I think when you
could see the video.
When either party says comments like that, it just automatically automatically closes everybody's ears, and people are not listening to listen. They're listening to reply, or they're listening just to rebuttal, and they don't listen to listen or to learn.
And I hope I proved I listened to listen, because I needed to follow through on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Salvador situation, there are people in Huntington Park from El Salvador, and they told me how, but they came legally, though. And it was in the 80s, and I think it was before Reagan's amnesty, but they were able to do it.
Yeah, like my parents, they came here legally. They were...
Guatemala had a civil war as well? Is that what had motivated it?
They came through the visa, they applied for residency, they became resident citizens, so they did it the legal way. And I understand that, and I totally understand, it is unfair for people like my parents who did that.
They did it legally, didn't they?
They did it legally.
Yeah,
I
mean, and how many years did it take? Probably 10 or?
Like 10.
Jesus,
so
it's crazy.
Who I do protect, and the reason why I go to Cudahy Council meetings and I do protect is the citizens who came here, the illegal immigrants who were brought here. Like I said, and you said that they should go back with their mentality and they should be able to help their own country, but it's a bit unfair for someone who's been living here for 20 years, accustomed to this country, to go back to somewhere else.
It is a tough situation.
Yeah. That's who I support. That's why I protect.
And at the end of it all,
and the hardworking people who come here as refugees, I see it. I don't see bad intentions in their eyes. I don't see that.
The refugee situation is another complication.
And going by the law, look into the TPS, temporary protective list, that they are protected by that, because there is such a chaos going down over there.
That one country you're saying, and those.
No,
citizens.
There's a list of countries.
Okay.
There's a list of countries.
I'm gonna have to look at that, but if this is the case, it's still a process that has to be followed.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are not doing it.
And another, they are. I personally know so many people who have been scammed by lawyers who take advantage of uneducated people, and thousands of dollars they scammed them out of. That's why it takes them, it could have taken them 5 years. Okay. Instead, it takes them 20 years because they were scammed out of $7,000. That's a major problem here as well.
Sure, I recognize it. Yeah. The bigger context, though, is that they're already here illegally, so it becomes necessarily secretive.
It's hard to defend that.
And there's other things too. I mean, I forgot to mention this. When you have families coming illegally, there's not a legal structure to protect mom if dad walks out, or worse, when dad beats mom. There's a sob story the Daily Breeze pushes all the time about a guy named Francisco. He was born here and then he went back, so he's an illegal coming in. And dad beat mom, and then he went to jail, they divorced. There's no structure to help. Mom doesn't have standing in a court of law, and then she dies, and this guy's all alone. I mean, it creates such disorder, And
you don't feel that it has anything to do with the trade deals, as far as from the U.S. on why people are fleeing Mexico? If there were better trade deals from U.S. and Mexico, where Mexico can be a little more stable. I mean, it has something to do with that. There has to be something there.
NAFTA has been, it's heavily benefited Mexico at the expense of the truckers and the businesses here. We still have to abide by these regulations, environmental, etc., labor laws. Mexico doesn't. So in a sense, Mexican government, and there's a lot of collusion there, they can get away with a lot of bad things. That's another good reason to fight this bad trade deal. It'll help Mexico. It'll help Canada. Mexicans, illegals are now going to Canada now and competing in that job market. This isn't good. We the people rising, and I don't speak as the final spokesman, that's Robin Lidston. She's the director, but when America is taking care of America's interests and ensuring those, it actually will help Mexico too. It'll help Canada. It'll help Guatemala. Because the political pressure valve isn't being diffused into another country. They turn and they fight, and it's happening now. In Guatemala too, it puts me to shame. It puts our pro-family movement to shame. They have fought vocally against the gender bending, the homosexuality agenda. They don't hide it. They are aggressively good. Mexico puts us to shame.
I don't know how the Guatemalan.
And I've joked with my pro-family leader in Massachusetts. They should build a wall to keep me out, to keep us out. They're actually fighting for family down there. They're fighting for family in Guatemala. Guatemala has a new president who's like Donald Trump. He's a comedian. He's an anti-corruption guy. And he's doing a great job on here. He's fighting this corruption crap. They put the previous guy in prison, apparently. People rose up. They're changing it. That's the way it has to be. And the education you're talking about, they get social media too. This technological advancement, the capitalism, is doing a better job of equalizing opportunity.
You know they have they have delivery McDonald's in Guatemala? When I went to visit.
So they're ahead of us on that, aren't they?
Yeah.
So like someone can phone in and it'll come to their home.
Yeah,
we're behind the curve on that. Everybody's so used to driving in their cars to go somewhere. And that's the thing about the free market. It's like we allow it to adapt without government imposure. Reading those two books, you'll see how it's documented. Hopefully it will turn you off to Bernie, because I have to wake up now. He's pushing socialism. He was a open communist.
I mean, but I could bring you a whole list of why to disagree with Trump and why not to follow him. I mean,
no, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah,
I'm not even speaking about political candidates. I'm speaking about ideologies now. It's scaring me a lot to hear young people saying, "I want single payer." They have no idea what they're talking about. It's total. I can't. It's bad, man. I mean, you have patients going into hospitals getting the wrong leg cut off. You have women forced to give birth to children in hallways. The rationing is extreme. There's fully inequitable. In London, in England, they talk about a two-tier system. Rich people get the great health care. Everybody else is screwed over with NHS. It's terrible. But the problem also is culturally, everybody's so used to free health care. It's not free. They pay it in taxes. And they're so accustomed to it, and there's fear about an insurance system or a free market system. I'll have to pay for it, but you'll pay this rather than this with insurance, or worse, getting criminal. There's so much crime in the NHS. I'm not going to. I have to. It's almost like a mission from God to start informing, Bernie voters. I appreciate your desire for authenticity, but these programs are destructive, and socialism is just 2 steps away from communism.
Well,
the very thing that
see what happened to Venezuela.
Thank you. Oh my God, what's happening in that country? It's and the people in Venezuela are rising up.
There has to be leverage, honestly, between. It's just you can't be. I mean, that's all. I could get really deep into that, but
So that's it. Venezuela should be a calling, is the bird in the coal mine about why you've got to stop any encroachment of a socialist system. Bad, very bad.
Okay, that's about it.
Good.
So just to get a clear your standpoint and my standpoint, and
yes,
I'm not. Yeah. So like I said, with the sanctuary thing, we might disagree on that, but it is what it is. I think if you would have grown up in Cudahy, maybe you would have had a different.
It's possible. I also know that you had at least 300 some voters vote for Trump. I talked to a heavy mover and shaker in the city. I have to ask his permission because he was attacked in many ways. I understand George Perez still lurks around, trying to start stuff. I had pressures telling me, because I went after Perez briefly, and they said, trying to keep him out of the race entirely.
This is off topic. What would be your advice? I have a couple of friends who want to run for politics, but they are not a part of any religion. Let's say they're agnostics.
Okay.
It's not probably a popular opinion. But as far as the future in politics, what would you say to someone like that?
Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson, George Washington were deists, so it doesn't prevent people from having a moral compass, but they have to cherish Judeo-Christian values. Don't kill, don't steal. Every life is precious.
There are Bible verses where they actually condone killing, but. Same with the Quran.
I'll speak to that briefly. Those are historical statements, which, again, we're in a new covenant. It's not about killing, it's about the grace of God. Those were specific military campaigns. That's how I respond. To this day, the Quran, the injunctions are present to kill. So it's different. In the Bible, it's love your neighbor. More importantly, love because he loved us.
What about as far as any historical?
I'm going to be infinitely honest because of my interest and not just the political one. They've got to get away from the Democratic Party. They need to blow it up and expose how they are taking you and every member of that community for a ride. Francisco Rivera in Huntington Park will tell you. He became a Republican, got so tired of the bullshit.
But if there is bad people in the DNC, does that make the DNC bad?
The problem is beyond individuals. It's a rot to the core because of the baby killing, the single payer advancements, minimum wages. You are in a business. You experience the consequences of these forced wage hikes.
Yeah.
It makes it harder to hire. It makes the goods more costly. My first job was at an ice cream shop. It went from 5 to 5.15. Can you remember those days? Yeah, I mean, people are clamoring for 15 an hour. It was 5 to 5.15. That's the bump. And my boss showed me I have to raise all the prices now to keep up with the cost. Tell me, you have experience what the minimum wage bumps are doing.
You want to replace machines with your workers because it gets so expensive.
Exactly, you're seeing this. It's totally corrupt. It's a sellout to the unions. There are corrupt Republicans, I honor that. But the platform is in concert with biology, with reality. That's why I'll still be a Republican, even though John McCain was the nominee once. Or Donald Trump didn't have a perfect personal life.
Because of the ideology, like you do the whole list of agreements. But I feel, like I said, there's a lot of things I don't agree with the Democrats. A lot of things I don't agree with the Republicans. Like that's why I'm pro-gun. So I mean, that's not democratic of me. You know what I'm saying?
I know, and it's getting worse because we're having police who aren't even doing their jobs. You know, you saw what happened to me in El Monte. You saw what happened to me in Claremont. You know, and
but I feel like there's a difference between being disruptive. I mean,
yes,
you don't feel like you've been a little too disruptive?
Democrats are disruptive everywhere, and nothing happens to them.
I've seen them kick.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Well, I sure haven't. But
like I said, there's bad Democrats, there's bad Republicans.
My principle is when Ted Lieu calls him a puppet of Russia, I will not let him get away with that. When he says that the Democrats killed Ryan Kerr, no, they didn't. Republicans.
Well, when Obama won,
I made phone calls myself.
Republicans they called him a monkey. They called him. They did riots. There's pictures of
not elected officials, and
maybe not elected officials, but.
And I can tell you this too: if there were local people who did that, they were forced to resign. When Tom Foley was, when Dennis Hastert was busted afterwards molesting kids, I say hang him from a tree. I don't stand by it. Democrats, when Gary Studs. This is in the early 80s. You can look that name up. He was sleeping with his pages, and nothing happened to him. The Democrats lined up behind their man. It's just unthinkable. Republicans...
People sleeping with who?
Kids.
Kids? Wow.
Pages. Gary Studs of Massachusetts. And the same voters would send him back 6 more times. I mean, it's just horrendous. That's just what I've seen generally. Republicans will turn on their members. You got a good guy in the DNC. It was Howard Dean, and he was very distinct.
What's his name? Can I write that?
Howard Dean. He was the governor of Vermont, actually, while Bernie was a congressman. And Howard Dean, full on Dem. He was the DNC chair. There was a nasty case in 2008. The congressman from New Orleans was taking bribes. He had 10 grand in his freezer, and Dean was on this week with on ABC, and George asks, okay, so if Mr. Jefferson is found guilty, should he resign? Yes, period. No excuses. It was very refreshing. Dean was very distinct in that way. Wow. And a Republican actually won that seat that year. Republicans never represented New Orleans in Congress. Never. And we won the seat that one time. Then we lost it. But and you'll see the stuff I write. You know, we have rhinos, and I go after them. Bad. I'm fed up with it. You need to represent we the people. Not we the Republicans, but we the people. It has been happening. So putting the partisan labels aside, which is probably what I need to start thinking about, they need to be... We're in a really tough spot in this state because it's like getting elected in those areas is based on voter fraud and a lot of corruption. You know, Karina Macias is... Have you followed what's going on at HP? I mean, she is a consultant with these companies who then get contracts with the city. Do you see that as a conflict of interest? I do, and lots of people in the city do as well. And she wins by these big-ass margins. Voter fraud, 1,400 for the Jew, and then Valentine got 400. This is voter fraud. We've got evidence of it.
So she's having relations with businesses that...
Yeah, and Efren Martinez is in the middle of all this. I don't know if he's doing anything in Cudahy, but he's part of that Florence...
Isn't that the same thing as a non-profit organization getting money from any company?
But the problem is they're lining their own pockets. And what they're pushing for is Beltran is still there. That guy's so corrupt that he had to step down from Bell. And he's still around. He was a volunteer for Macias' campaign. Now he's getting a 6-figure salary with Huntington Park money.
If they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to end up like Bell.
It is Bell. Yeah. Cudahy is Bell. I hate to say it. The only problem is that this district attorney isn't doing her job. I think she's part of the problem.
In Cadet? Or where?
I mean, for the county.
For the county?
And Royball's bad, too. A city attorney donating money to a campaign is really sketchy. 20 grand went Royball Jr. He goes, notice how he doesn't go by Royball. He wants to hide the connection with Mom. It sucks. And I would say this, you know, the biggest problem is like, it's the Democratic dominance. Republicans don't show up. They've given up on these communities. And that's another reason. I have a heartbeat for expanding this brand. And I bring Trump with me. And Trump won more votes in Compton and Inglewood than Romney did. We're on to something here without the rhetoric, of course. Jesus, it's...
I still feel we have way more qualified individuals than Trump to be
president
making decisions. I mean,
okay,
from his history. I mean, like I said, I'm not even going to start with a list of Trump, of why.
It's a free country, and I fought to defend that.